So, what actually got you into the field of strength and conditioning in the first place? How did it evolve?
Yeah, I think it's not an atypical story of a strength coach, right? I was a self-made athlete in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Found sport. Sport basically raised me. I was a single parent, 5 kids. Didn't have a whole lot of money, and so between church and sport, it was really kind of what gave me any kind of structure in my life, and wanted to keep doing it for as long as I could because I craved that part of it. And you get into high school and realize that there's college after that. So the only way I was going to make it is if I hit the weight room real hard. And so I was able to do that and get a college scholarship and go play football. And through football, I found the weight room. Through the weight room, I found a career that's taken me all over the world and worked with athletes at almost every level.
That's awesome. So, what was that initial idea of, you know what, I'm going to go from being a guy in the weight room myself to I'm going to be the guy behind all the guys, making them better?
Yeah, so my senior year in college, I was a biology major. I went to school and thought I was going to be a doctor, and thought at first I was going to be a physical therapist, and really struggled with kind of not working with athletes in a kind of a clinical setting. Then I thought I was going to go be an orthopedic surgeon, and I set in on my first live surgery, and that wasn't for me. And so then, somebody suggested that I be a strength coach, and this is 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, and so I really didn't really know what that was. And as I researched it, learned that I can apply science to training, and coaching never really appealed to me because I just didn't like watching football game film and that kind of stuff. But the training the process intrigued me a lot. And so once somebody told me that existed, I thought, let's do that. That's perfect. That's the job I want. But I didn't have any connections. And so, my birthday present that year from my girlfriend, who's now my wife, was to go to Texas A&M and to meet with a coach that had been a strength coach. That was a strength coach at Texas A&M, but had gone to the same school that I went to. And even though he never ended up meeting with me, it opened the door of me going down this path, and just reached out to a bunch of people, and seemed like my kind of people, and started as an intern with the Kansas City Royals, and just went from there down professional and collegiate sport.
You've been around for a day or two, I guess, in sports, I'd say. Do you have any real good stories that you can share?
It'd be a freaking, we'd be here all day. I think, my career is really kind of a culmination of stories. I think, I couldn't get anybody to give me a job because I came from a small school with not a lot of network, and so I sent 276 letters out and got, I would keep the rejection letters, and this is before email and texting and all that kind of stuff. So I literally had to go and mail these letters. And every rejection letter I put on a board, and it drove me to kind of keep going. And so I got an opportunity with the Kansas City Royals, an unpaid internship. Worked my way up there to the point where they wanted to hire me, and I decided to turn it down to be an unpaid intern again with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because I wanted to be in the NFL. And so I went to the NFL with the Bucs, worked my way up into a part-time assistant role. But there I wanted to, I was young and dumb and thought that I could do everything. I'm 21 years old, 22 years old, 22 years old. And thought I could do it. So I got an opportunity to be a head strength coach over in NFL Europe, and didn't know anything about anything, and got the role, and just to kind of set me down this path to being a head strength coach and really kind of learning on the job. But I've made every mistake. I've fired a staff member for not coming in during a hurricane. I've thrown I've thrown plates at kids before for being late. I've made every mistake there is, but I've always cared about the people that I've worked with and worked and that trained underneath me and poured into them every way I could and had a deep-seated obligation to kind of give back to a profession that's given me so much and provided, a really solid life for me and my family.
Absolutely. Around the field of strength and conditioning, fitness, anything to make the body perform better. I'm sure you've heard a lot of misnomers that keep coming up over and over and over again. And I don't know, to me sometimes I kind of want to put my head through the wall, like, again, that's the same thing again. So is there anything that you've kind of heard over and over that you just know in training in itself that might not be right, that you can say, nope, I hear that all the time and that's just not it?
I think you hear all the typical ones, right? Like, if you're a female, lifting's going to make me big, or if you're a guy, with skinny legs, you can never get stronger, or whatever. I think the big thing is what I've taken away from my career is that what we do is it's not rocket science. It's a pretty simplistic deal, but you got to put in the work, and it's got to be, and anything in moderation is good, and so all these different philosophies, all these different supplements, all these different, deals, anything in excess is bad. Lifting weights in excess is bad. Doing nothing but sprint training at the expense of everything else is bad, focusing on functional fitness without developing any strength or power is bad, and I think you got, so I think the biggest misnomer is that you feel like you have to go down one path, or you only have to pick one tool, and the reality is that it's got to be diversification across the board.
I totally agree with that, and I mean, between endurance training, high intensity interval training, a lot of things that we have here in the Fit Lab here, I like to tell people, yeah, you can get into some type of shape, but you may not win an Olympic gold medal. It's that overall experience and working on the different skills that encompass becoming that true athlete. And I don't know about what you think here, but it seems like marketing oftentimes gets in the way of success. Do this one thing, and that's it. There's your gold medal right there.
Yeah, totally. The hyperbolic claims, the standing out in a crowded space, and all the stuff that people have to do that. I think it's just like anything. I think we're going to look back on where fitness is at this point. We're going to think that it's very much like the used car salesman that's just screaming at the television to come, buy this car and this savings and this, bonus and, whatever. I think, ultimately what we have an obligation to do is to develop a really robust toolbox and help people you have to put in the work, and everybody has something that they can improve.
100%. Now, you brought up supplements before a little bit. There's a lot to be said. It's like a Pandora's box, I think, with supplements. I remember one time, it was actually back in the day at USF, one of the guys came up, I don't even remember who it was. You were standing right next to me, and he said, "Hey, coach, can I take this?" And you just took one look at it and said, "No, don't even try." So, we all get, there are certain supplements that'll pop you hot under the World Anti-Doping Association rules, but is there anything that you might say, you know what, that might be one worth taking to help improve your performance?
Yeah, man, I think, in 1994 they passed the Dietary Supplement Act, which kind of took, drug category and put it in the food category. And so, something that in drug category, it's very kind of regulated. Whereas, the food category, so much there that it doesn't get the same level of scrutiny,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, so people can kind of do whatever they want and just say whatever they want. And if they do get slapped on the hand with a fine, it's usually not nearly what it would be, to the expense to the athlete or to the person. They're willing to take that risk. So it's a buyer's beware market. I've always focused on that. I don't care what manufacturing certifications they have or whatever it is. It's always buyer's beware. There's always a human error. And I think when you're working with people, especially athletes, that their livelihood is dependent upon passing those drug tests, when you can get most of that from your doctor. So you remember, being at South Florida with us, we would give them that quiz, and it was, you're drinking your cups of water, eating 8 hours of sleep, if you're, a list of things that, if you're not doing all these things first, let's not worry about supplements. Let's fix these things first. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're still eating something, then we can start to address it with supplementation, which is, it's to supplement what should be done in the area. And so, to me, that's, I think there is a place for supplement, but it's only because they're deficient for some. So there.
So, in being a coach, you're kind of seen as the guy. And being the guy, it takes a lot out of you, I'm sure, because you have a lot of other aspects of life as well. You got family, that's a big aspect. How do you find the time to hone in on your own different aspects of your life for mind, body, your own physical fitness, eating right, staying on it, so you can be the best version of you possible, because everyone else is counting on you?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think I'll tell people often that, to be elite at anything, horseshoe throwing, when it doesn't matter, to be elite, you have to be skewed to the right a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's still cutting up on you. Is it still cutting up on you?
No, we're good.
Yeah. To be elite, you have to skew. You have to be skewed a little bit to the right, and I think too many people just accept it. They want this perfect balanced life that and they also want to be elite professionally, or they want to be elite as a parent, or whatever it may be. And I think those things, you have to really work to find the time, and you're going to have to be a little skewed. You're going to have to give up something. So for me, oftentimes that was sleep, right? I would give up sleep time so I could be a better husband or a better father at my own expense, going into 12 hours, 16 hours of training athletes.
Mm-hmm.
What you do have, though, also, is you have seasons of life, and so, like, early on when you're just getting married, and you don't have kids yet, but that's a season of life where you should be working, 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week, or whatever it is, to be, to set yourself up, so that way later on, when you are, have kids and a different place in life, then yeah, maybe you can get closer to that 40-hour work week or whatever it is. So I to answer your question, I don't think balance exists. I think you have to, to skew it a little bit. But what I tell people is, your time may be skewed, but you have to be 100% present where you're at. So, if I'm at work, I'm usually 100% at work.
Right.
If I'm at home, I'm usually 100% at home. And I think that's the key to it is making sure that when you do have time with your wife or with your kids or your husband or whatever, that you're not distracted by all the other stuff.
Oh, that's actually a lot more helpful, I think, than the simplicity of that in just being there, being mindful at where you're at that moment. I mean, any athlete that I've ever known that is worth their weight and then some, yeah, that they eat, sleep, and breathe that, and that's all they do. Someone in business, eat, sleep, and breathe that, and that's all they do. But if you're not there, and you still want that other family life or life doing something else, yeah, if you're just mentally there and giving it all forth, yeah, that does play a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In your book, you talk about transitioning from a technician to a manager. Now, what exactly does that mean? Being a technician and then becoming a manager, and is that really right for everyone to end up becoming a manager?
Yeah, I mean, I think, where that stems from is the book E-Myth Revisited, and in my book, I wrote kind of my version of that in relation to strength and conditioning, where you've got to be a success in three things.
Mm-hmm.
To be a success overall, you have to be a great technician, you have to be a great manager, and you have to be a great entrepreneur. And I think those do become steps that you go through as a coach or a business owner. So you're a plumber. Well, you need to learn the trade. You need to know everything about plumbing,
Mm-hmm.
right? But eventually, you get to a point where you're like, you got your own ideas of how you should run the business, right?
Yep.
So oftentimes they start their own business, but they realize that they haven't developed themselves as a manager, or they're managing time, people, resources. And people being the hardest part, like managing people, that's the toughest thing. So being a strength coach, and just going out there and coaching somebody else's program and taking athletes through, that's easy. Getting them to buy into you, believe in you, be there on time, do all the right things. That's the hard part, So you have to develop yourself. And the problem that we have in our profession is we didn't get those skills when we went to biology class or anatomy and physiology or exercise science.
Right.
We weren't developing our time management tactics and management, managerial, strategies or budget and accounting. Those are all things. Those are the things that if you own a business, you better get really good at fast, or you're going to go under, right?
Quick. Yep.
So you have to develop that, and then once you've developed yourself as a manager, then it becomes you have to constantly be sharpening the sword and challenging your ideals and being the best version of yourself. And that's where being an entrepreneur comes in, where you have to constantly be doing those things. So those can be steps where you develop them independent of one another, but the great ones are working at all three of those all the time, and developing themselves in all three of those categories.
So you just said something about getting the others to buy into your program, if you would. What have you kind of done to get people to buy into your program and follow you?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many strategies, different things, but it really comes back to, I had a pastor in South Florida you probably met. His name was David Lee, and he would talk about, you spell love, T-I-M-E. What you love, you'll spend time on. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. Is if you have an athlete for an hour training session, they have 23 hours to mess up everything you just did. If you're not a part of those 23 hours in some way, then you're fighting a losing battle. So the answer to that question is you have to build a relationship where you have their permission to be a part of those other 23 hours. And so that's eating meals with them. That's texting them. When you see something that is of interest to them. That's sending motivational quotes or Bible verses. That's remembering their birthday, remembering key moments and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do that, and then you find strategies like social media to scale that. So it's nothing for me to go and maybe have one of my former athletes create a video on Twitter, and then tweeted it to one of my current athletes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and sometimes those messages come along a lot further along than if I was to constantly be saying it.
Now, you have coached quite a few teams, and in the teams are a lot of individuals. Do you find it more difficult being with the team to coach individuals differently because they don't all respond the exact same way?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have, that's why you and others have been a part of the staff, because not everybody's going to respond to me, right? You know, not everybody's going to respond to my mindset, my mentality. So it was critical for me to surround them. If you remember, I mean, we had a strength coach for every rack.
Yep.
4 guys a rack, and everybody had their own rack. And the job of the coach was to develop that kind of relationship with those 4 athletes, and basically report back up to me. So I was coaching the entire group, but through a number of coaches, and and then I had to do my part, the parts that you didn't see at that point, where all that being involved with those other 23 hours. I was calling them, I was seeing them, I was eating with them, I was doing skill work with them, I was doing all kinds of things that to make sure I had that individual connection. So I think when you're working with a team, there has to be a collection of team goals and team values and a mission that you keep front and center, that everybody rallies around.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to dive into the athletes individually to learn what motivates them, and then so you know what buttons to push when you need to push them.
Of course. Now, after you leave a team, I mean, it's the world of sports. You're unfortunately not there for 20, 30 years at one individual team. Do you usually keep in touch with the guys?
Yeah, no, all the time. I just had lunch last week with an athlete that was coming through. That was from the first year I was at South Florida. I had a call a couple days ago from 2 athletes that were walk-ons that are doctors now, and they're at some doctors conference, and they were telling Coach Max stories.
Nice.
Those are the best. That's the best stuff. Is when you know that you've made an impact that transcends just those 4 years that you may have them as a college athlete, or 1 year even as a pro athlete. When you have those kind of relationships, and it's hard. I mean, everybody goes their separate ways and all the things. But I think the key to that is, I don't think there's a single athlete that's trained with me that doesn't think that they could call me if they needed me, person, and I think that's the critical piece, is that I think back to my teammates that I had in college. I think to my coaches, I have a confidence that if I ever needed any of those guys, I could reach out to them, and they'd be there for me. And I know that my athletes feel that way about me. And of course, there's the examples of all the ones that have actually done that, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a special connection there that does happen. It's got to feel great when all the years later they're coming back and saying, "Hey, I'm in town."
Fun.
Have you figured out some of the athletes that, I see a lot of athletes that are so concerned about their physical appearance, and I've found that physical appearance personally does not necessarily translate to on-field performance. Have you found that as well? And if so, how do you kind of get them to stop looking in the mirror and start focusing more on what they're actually doing?
No guy, everybody wants to look as good as they can possibly look, right?
Of course.
And I think what it comes back to is more the systemic problem of why athletes think that they train, right? Some athletes, Tommy Moffitt at LSU, he has a quote that he learned from some high school coach he had, but basically, like, they're not, I can't remember exactly what the quote was, but essentially it was something to the effect of, they're not there to lift weights. They don't want to be there to lift weights. They're there to they want to play the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So lifting weights is just it's a byproduct of them getting to do what they really want to do, which is play in the games. So we have to recognize that. We try to make strength and conditioning the most important thing. And the reality is for most of those guys, it's not the most important thing. You know, that's just that's something that they have to do to be able to do what they love to do. And so we can fight that battle, like you said, where it's like, man, it's not about your personal looks, it's not about this, it's about performance and all that. Or we can flip it where we're like, hey, look, we're going to train like an athlete, but oh, by the way, you're going to look better too.
Right.
And it's a win-win. And so, to me, I'm always a fan of finding what their motivation is and then helping manipulate that motivation back into the overall mission.
Mm-hmm.
So if they want to look great, I'll tell them that freaking sprints will make their butt look better. I don't care. But it's but we need to do the steak and potatoes. So like for me, in my workouts, I always have what I consider the steak and potatoes. Those are going to be the things, the stuff that's going to help us for performance,
mm-hmm.
right? And then I have sugar in there all the time. So sugar is either stuff that makes them look good, right? Or it's stuff that is going to make them think that they're translating it to the field. So, so like a wide receiver, in between sets, I might throw them a tennis ball in between sets,
mm-hmm.
waiting for the next set. Because they think they're getting better at becoming a wide receiver. I'm just getting them to rest in between their sets.
Nice technique. I like that. But I know your time is limited, and I'm very grateful to have you here and spend some time with us today. And absolutely, I know you've helped mold and shape me in many ways. A lot of lessons that you've imparted on me, I've taken with me and now impart on others. So thank you so much again for being here, and it's greatly appreciated.
No, man, I appreciate it. This is, again, just as much as it is for catching up with old athletes, catching up with old staff members. Sometimes that's even more rewarding. Fired up from you and your business and this podcast, and know how much work goes into putting stuff like this out. So, really appreciate what you're doing, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ron. And before out, you have any, what is your podcast for everybody? Where can they find it? Your book, and how can they obtain it?
Yeah, it's it seems like I'm freaking everywhere these days, but the best thing is just go to RonMcKeefery.com.
Mm-hmm.
I have a podcast called Iron Game Talk. I have a couple of books that I've written. I don't do any of that I don't do any of that for just the money or anything like that. I do it because I truly want to give back to the community. Those are two types of ways that I've been able to find as a way for me to get my ideas out there, and highlight good people. So it's been good that way.
Good stuff.
So RonMcKeefery.com, and my social media is @RMcKeefery.
All right, Ron. I appreciate you so much, and thank you for being here.
Likewise, buddy. Thanks.